Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Come in, come in, come in. This is Tamika's Den. I am Tamika, and this is BelAir, y'all, okay? No one wins when the family feuds, okay? Season 1, episode 8. And so we started out this episode with Carlton and Phil out on the golf course. He's talking about Yamacross still got it. He says they have to catch up to Assemblyman Hernandez. And Carlton is like, "Can't we get a golf cart, okay?" He don't want to be walking all around this course. He was like, "They're complimentary." And Phil tells him it's a part of his punishment, okay, from that party. And of course, Carlton got to ask, what about Will and his punishment? And he says that Will's punishment is on pause because it is his birthday, all right? And so he also tells Carlton that he had to put in a call for him, all right? This didn't just go away or whatever the case may be, because at first Carlton was like, this was blown way out of proportion. It was minimum damage and it was only a noise violation. And, Phil tells him he was lucky Lisa called his dad and that he also had to make a call. And he was like, wait, you had to cut a deal with the police commissioner? And so he says, yes, I just, pointed out that, this is a target, of somebody that's my opponent, and it could be appear that our family was targeted. And so Carlton is surprised to find out that his dad put in this call. I don't know why, but he didn't expect him to, and he was like, "Wow, Dad, thanks. I mean it." And he says, "You're welcome. Consider that an act of grace." And remember, he told Carlton that it was an act of grace when he put in the call for Will, and he tells him he would always do anything to safeguard his future. He was like, "Do you understand?" And so I think that kind of made Carlton feel good for a minute. All right, we had Will and him, Viv rather, meeting his mom Vi at the airport. Okay, she done came in for his birthday, and so of course they all giving hugs. The hug between her and Vi is very awkward, and Will's like, "Come on, let's go." He grabs her suitcase, and she's telling him how big he got. He's like, "Yeah, the coach be having me do Pilates," and she's like, "Oh, fancy smancy." We seeing Hillary trying to set up to do a video. Kylo comes in talking about, "Please tell me this is a follow video." And she's like, "Follow a video." She's like, "No, not yet." She was like, "Otherwise it could get played out. Sometimes I gotta switch it up." And he was like, "Yeah, but the sexy chef videos is like 3 million and up, and the other regular old tutorials is a fraction of those, okay?" And he was like, "I don't want you to lose momentum." And she's like, "I won't." And he's like, "All right." And so he was like, "Well, what's the holdup?" And she's letting him know that she really wanted to talk to her parents because she had told them it wasn't going to be any more of these videos and she needs to prepare them. And he's like, "Oh, you got to have mommy and daddy's permission." And she was like, "Boy, listen, I'm by knobs, so don't play with me right now, okay?" And he was like, "Well, okay, but I hate to see you, let this opportunity slip through your fingers, all right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, Kylo, whatever. You ain't worried about her no daggone opportunities she gonna have. You worried about what it's gonna do to benefit you." But nonetheless, we have Phil out with Assembly Hernandez on the course. He's, Assembly Hernandez says to him, "Why don't we go talk privately and leave these caddies over here and let them stretch their legs?" And so, Phil goes off with Assemblyman Hernandez and says, "Am I going to have your support?" And he says, "No, not looking like it right now, okay, because things are really tight, okay? The race is really close." And he was like, "You need to get your family in order." Of course, Phil is looking like, "What the hell are you talking about? What you mean get my family in order?" He's like, "Your wife apparently disappeared ever since she, off the campaign trail, ever since she got into an outburst at a party." He's like, "Hillary is doing thirst trap videos." I said, "Not thirst trap videos." And he says, Carlton in the party. And so it's like 3 different issues that he feels that Phil has that he needs to go ahead and get on top of, okay? And so, of course, Phil is not happy hearing this. And he tells him he needs to get his family in line, all right? And basically walks away. We have Va coming in and seeing the place and saying, "Wow," and she's saying that she actually have not been there in 20 daggone years, y'all. Okay, the last time she was there was actually when Phil and Viv got married. And she said at that time they didn't have all of this that they have now, okay? So she's just like, oh wow. And she's like, looking at the painting and saying, oh, that's Diane. And she had went to Howard and got a scholarship, and I haven't seen Diane in 20 years. And that's when they say that that's been that long since she been there. And they talk about how much things have changed. Viv was like, yeah, we had to eat them damn leftovers, okay, from the reception for about 2 weeks, okay. And so Va says, well, you don't have that problem anymore. And Viv says, yes, a lot has changed. And she said, well, for one thing, the kids are, instantly growing up. She says, Will is almost a man. And then, Va says to Viv, I'm thinking about telling him about his father. And this gets Viv real upset. Okay, she was like, tell him what? And Va says, tell him everything. She was like, the whole story. She said, wait, have you thought long and hard about this? I mean, I'm sure she had. And then she said, I realized that it may hurt him, but, I have to explain the reasons. And then Viv says, reasons? He will hate us. So I'm like, well, what the hell? And she's like, are we prepared for that? I'm like, what is really the truth? What is going on? Spill the tea. Inquiring minds want to know, baby, because they are making a big thing about telling Will about his father, okay? And so, and at the end of the day, I think that the buzz stops between Will and his mom, okay, for her to make the final decision. But apparently she's saying us, so whatever went down involved all of them. Will does go find Lisa in the pool house because she has sent him a text, and he basically comes in there, kissing all up on her. He's saying that he would love to be able to just stay in there and chill with her, but his mom did just come in. And he tells Lisa she should come in and meet her. And she's like, well, no, it's her first day here. I don't think you should be bombarding her with me just yet. And he says, you may have a point, but I definitely want you to come back tomorrow when we having the birthday dinner, and I want you to be here, with us and be able to celebrate and meet her then. And she says, okay, all right. And so, Uncle Phil and Carlton are having a discussion because Carlton can see the look on Uncle Phil's face that things didn't go good with Assemblyman Hernandez. He's saying, I thought, you was getting a donation for him. What's going on? Is there a problem? And so he tells him, doesn't look like it. Yes, there is a problem. He got to try to work some things out. So at first Carlton is saying, okay, what can I do? How can I help? And, tell me what to do. We're all in. And Phil kind of snaps at him a little bit, okay, and was like, well, one thing you could do is get yourself together, not get into any more trouble, not have any more parties, that type of thing. And Carlton was like, you going to keep holding this over my head? And he was like, yeah, actually I will. And he was like, well, it's funny that you don't do this with Will. You always giving him second chances. And he basically says, Will came from a different place. He's not used to what we have to deal with. This is all new to him, whereas you have already been here and grew up with it, and therefore it should be second nature to you. And of course that rubs Carlton the wrong way, and he walks away, pissed off, like, okay, Dad, got you, so I can never make mistakes. And so, basically that him feeling, happy and content a little bit that his father had his back is basically gone 2 seconds later because now he's like, you always just treating me like crap. I guess that's how he's feeling. And so, you have Aunt Vi very happy to see Hillary. Apparently, she's one of her biggest fans on social media. She follows her. She's always commenting under every post. Hillary says, I think that, people love you and they come there for your comments. And she was saying she loved to support her family. She was like, most of those recipes go back 3 generations. They start talking about Grandma Smith, and then, Will is calling her Mima. He's talking about how he went and eat lunch so he could come in and be able to have, her food. And Viv is like, I didn't realize that Vi was following you on social media. And they say how Viv got banned because she was always coming through messing with people and they had to block her. Okay. And, push back some of her stuff and put some boundaries, all right? And so, then Vi's talking about Kylo is cute, and Will is like, excuse me, Ma, no, you ain't sliding up in nobody DMs, We have Carlton and Phil get home, and she's telling Carlton how proud of him she is, how Will told him, that he's an honor student and that he gets these great grades. And then, Carlton's like, yeah, top three, but, I'm trying to basically become valedictorian. She's telling him she's sure he will. She's telling him he's so handsome, and he's like, all right, well, I like how you speak the truth. All right. And so you could see that she does have a great relationship with the kids, even though they've been in separate, places. They still been keeping in touch, and it's not as, kind of uncomfortable like it is between her and her sister. All right. And so then they was, like I said, talking about these grandma meals. Hillary says the mac and cheese was out of this world. And so, Ashley is asking, well, why did this stop? Why did y'all stop doing this? Why did y'all stop going back and forth and sharing meals and all of that kind of stuff? And, Viv says, well, grandma started getting sick. And, Vi says, yeah, and I was the one left to take care of her. And Phil and Viv start to say how they was sending money. And Vi says, yeah, well, checks and, pay bills, but they don't change bedpans. And so we start to see a little bit of what the problem is there, right? One person got left there where they actually was taking care of the mother. The other one is like, listen, that wasn't our home. We wasn't living there, all right? We was living here, so we did what we could to help. They also say that she could have put her in a home and they would have been willing to, pay for that. She said, I'm not paying for no strangers to take care of my mother. I was going to take care of my mother. And we know that is real issues that families do deal with, right? It's usually the one that's left to take care of everything. And the one, that kind of gets to have a little leeway, and maybe they just send money here and there. Maybe they don't do anything at all. So that is definitely part of the resentment there. Okay. And so Will, of course, as usual, as he usually does, had to kind of calm it down. He didn't want to hear no arguing. He tells them all to chill. And he's like, you did the same thing when grandma was literally dying, and you're not about to do the same thing now. Okay, it didn't change anything then, and it daggone sure ain't gonna change anything now. So I appreciated Will stepping in and saying that, and that kind of calmed everything down. It was like, the kids is being more adult than the daggone adults. Okay. Then you have Hillary finally telling, her mom and dad about how she want to stay in this thing, right? But of course she trying to spin it and tell them all about how women are looked at this way if they're black or white. And Phil says, look, we don't need your identity politics. You told us you're going to take it down. Are you taking it down or not? She says that she wants to re-examine it. And he was like, do you consider what that mean? And she was like, you all over social media naked. And then she's like, I'm not naked, Dad. And she was like, in your campaign, they should be ashamed if they got a problem with body positive posts, and anyone else could go to hell. And so Viv says, okay, calm it down. She was like, look, keeping your posts mean more than them, you imagining that they mean. And she was like, did you really think this all the way through? And so Hillary says yes. And so Phil was like, well, then I guess that's settled, and he just looks at her like he's really disappointed. He was like, I gotta go spin a narrative. She's like, Dad, I know it's hard to understand, but I'm making good decisions. And he's kind of like, yeah, okay, if you say so. And he walks away. Okay, he's like, sure. Then she turns to her mom like, Mom, you understand, don't you? And Viv is kind of like, no, to be honest with you, I don't. I have no idea what you're trying to do. But I do know that it doesn't make no sense to sit and argue with you back and forth. I love you, and I've learned, it's better to argue less and listen more. But I do have to ask, okay, here is my question. Does this really reflect who you are? Like, at the end of the day, are you doing this because you really want to do it? And, she basically left her with that and went on ahead. Okay. We have, Will upstairs with his mom, and she's telling him, me and your aunt got a lot of stuff we got to work through. There's a lot of things that have happened over the years. We just clashed. We're very different. But, he says, no, actually, y'all not. Y'all both always got all the answers, and y'all both like to have the last word. You're actually too much alike, okay? And so she says, well, at the end of the day, I'm not here about that. I'm here to celebrate your birthday, and I want to focus on you. I don't want to be worrying about me and Viv, okay? And so he was like, okay, that's good with me. And so she says that she will do her best, to get along. And so She says she gonna go ahead and go lay down because she's jet lagged, and she tells him good night. And she basically, was like, I can't get over you remembering that me and Viv was arguing back when grandma was sick. You had to be about 6 or 7 then. She said, how far back do you remember? He said, well, I remember when I was 4, I got a kiss from this girl Jasmine on the playground. And he was like, that was nice or whatever. And so he was like, yeah, that was cool. And so she asked him, do you remember anything of your father? And he says bits and pieces, okay? And then, she says goodnight again, and she got had to leave. And so, Phil comes into where Viv is painting, and he's like, so are you going to be in here all night, or you ever coming to bed? Phil is just having an attitude right now because things ain't going too good for Phil, all right? And so she was like, I'm in my groove. I got this scholarship that I got to work on. And he was like, okay, yeah, we back to, deadlines or whatever the case may be. Are you going to sleep in here? Or are you ever going to get back in the room? And so, he says it would have been nice if she would have had his back with Hillary. And she tells him, listen, we weren't going to get anywhere. We're arguing with her back and forth, okay? That just was not going to solve anything. She has to come to this on her own, and realization of her own and what she needs to do. And so, like I said, she's painting for this Neiman Fellowship, and she's trying to focus on that. But she does tell him, well, we actually do have a bigger problem than all of this that we need to discuss, okay, and need to talk about a little bit. And he was like, okay, what is that? And she tells him how Vi told her, that she wants to tell Will about Lou, right? His dad. And this gets Phil really, really upset, like more than I thought that it would be. So again, I'm asking what the heck is going on with Will's dad? And so basically she was like, well, I told her, that it wasn't a good idea. Oh, well, you damn right. And she better not. And, he just really came really, really aggressive. He was like, you gotta be kidding me, and she says I advised her against it. And he was like, yeah, that's a terrible idea. And she says, well, Will does deserve to know his dad. He was like, yeah, maybe someday, but not on his 17th birthday. He was like, listen, Viv, we gotta stand together on this one, all right? And she was like, Phil, he's gonna find out one day, and we don't want him finding out on his own. The longer we keep him in the dark, the worse it could be for all of us. So what the heck did they do, y'all? It's not looking good, okay? And so, you have Will wake up and come down to the kitchen, and his mama is making him all his favorite meals for breakfast, okay? She going crazy. She got biscuits. She got gravy. She looked like she got some ham and grits, and I don't know what else was up there, but baby was getting it in the kitchen, all right? And she said she was going to make sure that he had everything on his birthday, all right? So he is very excited about that. And so, Will actually ask her if she looks like his dad, and she tells him, like, oh, well, you look like me. Come on. It's like looking in a mirror. You have Carlton come down talking about what's going on, what is all of this. And, Will tells him, like, take one of them biscuits, okay, and wait till you taste it with the gravy on it. And so he asked, like, why my mom don't cook like this? He was like, this the best biscuit I ever had. So she says, well, your mom was busy out in them streets, okay? Mama used to party. So, of course, he's like, tell me more. What else did my mom used to get into? And so she tells him about her jumping on stage with somebody. I can't remember if it was D'Angelo or somebody. She says she jumped on the stage with one time. And then Ava comes in like, no, that's not how it happened. And I didn't just jump up there. He invited me up there. She was like, girl, he didn't invite you nowhere. She was like, well, he invited me with his eyes. And they actually laugh about that for a minute. They actually, we find out that Vi is actually the one that bought her first paint set, okay? When she seemed that she was into painting. Will talks about them going to hang out on the beach, and she's like, okay, yeah, I'm down with that. He wants to show her the beach, and they say they're gonna have breakfast first, and then Viv says that she will meet them for lunch. Basically let them have they little private time, and then she'll meet them after for lunch. And so they go say they're gonna go ahead and have this breakfast and then go ahead with their day. We have Jeffrey come in and we find out that he set up a separate kind of secret meeting between Wilkes and Phil, so that they could talk. He comes in to let Phil know that he set everything up for that. So Phil is like, okay, thank you, good. You made sure that it's not going to be no type of reporters or anything like that there. And Jeffrey says yes. Phil tells Jeffrey about Vi wanting to tell Will about his dad. And, he says he needs his help. So I'm like, well, Phil is really, really, serious about this, huh? Like, this is just making me more and more curious of what happened with Will's dad. And so, he tells Jeffrey to make sure that Lou doesn't come anywhere near Will. And I'm like, well, damn, Phil, And so Will's mom, is on the beach with him or whatever. They having a little ices, they having their talks, reminiscing on Philly, whatever have you. And he says, he's so thankful to Aunt Viv and Phil for what they've done. And, Vi kind of gets in her feelings and was like, oh, well, you're giving them credit, for taking you out here for these last couple of months when I basically have raised you your whole life. And Will was like, Mom, of course, I'm thankful to you too. If you didn't raise me, number one, and if you didn't send me out here, I could have possibly been dead right now. Of course, I'm thankful to you. Okay, so we definitely still getting a little jealousy going on with Vi, where she's acting like this is some type of competition going on, girl. No, it's not. All right. And so Phil has the meeting with Wilkes, and we find out what he basically wanted to meet him for, which that could have been a phone call, but I guess maybe they feel like people could tap in on the phones, all right, because they did come without any reporters or anything, and Wilkes is late, and he does, make the snide remark that, listen, I still gotta, I'm a public servant, and I still got a job I have to do, or whatever the case may be, so that's why he was running a little bit behind. And he basically, tells him, listen, this is a close race since you came in and threw everything kind of like a monkey wrench in it and threw things off and is real tight. And the only way that we could break this is if we have a debate, and whoever wins the debate basically would end up supporting the other one, as they are the ones that would finally run. And so they do come to an agreement with that. And that was that on that. Okay. We have Kylo come in, because Hillary's trying to set up this, video. She got her negligee on. She's smiling at the camera, but it's not feeling right to her. And she's still hearing her mother's voice in the background saying, does this reflect who you are? So she essentially ends up going into Kylo's office and saying, listen, this is not going to work for me. She was like, I have 4 other ideas besides the whole thirsty chef that I want to do, and I'm still going to make my time, that I'm supposed to, and get things done that I'm supposed to, and all of that. And he says, this doesn't surprise me, Hillary. I knew you was going to come with this. He was like, I did some research on you, and you don't follow up and finish anything you do, okay? This is a pattern for you. And so she's like, what are you talking about? He was like, well, you didn't finish college, you done had 3 different daggone jobs that you went to. With something else he said that she started that she didn't finish. And so he was like, you basically never, it's easy for you to give up stuff because you never really have to work hard for it because you don't have any bills to pay. So he done called out Hillary a little something, okay? And this pisses Hillary off, and she ends up telling him, F you, Kylo, okay? She says, I will go off on my own, and I will still make ends meet. I could do it my own way without you, and I will make sure that I don't lose my endorsements. And he says, well, actually, everything that you have and that you did while you was in here belongs to me. He was like, you can't take anything with you anyway, okay? You have the endorsements because of me. He says, obviously, you did not read your contracts. And I'm like, Hillary, girl, like, listen, okay, I understand maybe you didn't read it the first time, but you still messed up there because at the end of the day, you don't sign anything without reading it. That's the number 1 rule. And I know your daggone parents told you that. And number 2, even if you didn't because you was excited or whatever your excuse may be, once the other chick in the house told you that Kyler could do whatever he wanted to do when it was up on the cloud, and you was first against the first video and was going to talk to him all of that, and you went and talked to your mom and dad about it, you mean to tell me you still didn't sit down and read that contract? So all this time you've been there, you never even knew what it said in there, what you was supposed to do, what you wasn't supposed to do, and all of that? Girl, no. Girl, bye. Okay, you messed up big time with that part. And Kylo got the upper hand on you when it came to that. And when it comes to that, you can't blame nobody but yourself, because you definitely was slipping when you did that. You played yourself, okay? And so now she got to go ahead and figure that out, all right? And so, Viv and Will and Vi meet up for lunch, right? She done came and met them after the beach. Will is saying how they seen Rihanna here one time, how it's so nice, the food is good, he can't wait. And she's like, oh, you've been here before? He was like, yeah. And so, Vi says that they like to bring the kids out at least once a week to different nice places, let them be able to get, different types of foods and different experiences and things of that nature. Viv tells Bob that she's painting again. And she's like, wow, okay, that's really something. She's like, well, I'm glad to hear that, because we sure enough dished out a whole bunch of money for you to go ahead and get into painting. And then the next thing we know, you gave it up. And so, of course, this ticks Vi off. And Vi was about to be like, you was chasing after Will's father, or whatever the case may be. But, again, Will intervenes and cuts it off. And then they go ahead and just try to have a nice dinner without them arguing, okay? And so, because Will was like, oh, she's getting paid 20 G's for paintings, and she's nominated to be inside this internship and all of that different kind of stuff. And she was like, well, that's good to hear. And so, of course, at this point, the waiter had came over, for the food. And he was like, I would like to be able to just get through this birthday dinner without it being any more nonsense, okay? Excuse me. And Will was like, the waiter rather was like, happy birthday to Will, because she overheard that part. So you have Jeffrey and, Phil out. He's basically doing like his little boxing or whatever the case may be, I guess, trying to release some stress. And Jeffrey and, Phil are talking as they're doing this. And Phil is saying, okay, I'm going to need you to go ahead and take care of Will's father. And Jeffrey is saying, Phil, I think you should try a different tactic with Will's dad, okay? And Phil says he knew, Phil says if he knew Will's dad, he would understand. And he basically was like, Jeffrey says, I hear you, but is it really, up to you to decide that? He says, I think about my son, and you should think about Carton, and then you tell me, if you would still feel that way if you was in Lou's position. And so, Phil punches Jeffrey real hard, okay, and give him attitude and says, just do what I ask. And then Jeffrey says, I'm not that kind of brother. It doesn't sit right with me. And then Phil says, too bad you work for me. And Jeffrey was like, oh, okay, understood. And so I didn't like that, okay? Phil was getting a little cute with that, and that did not sit right with me, all right, y'all? And so, Will is walking and talking with his mom, and he's telling her, look, I need to have a straight up conversation with you. We need to keep it real. She says, what about baby? And he's like, about my dad, I want to know, with you and Aunt Viv talking about him, it makes me think about him. He was like, I was already thinking about him before, because she was saying she shouldn't have drugged him up. He was like, I've been thinking about him for years. You never talk about him. And if I bring him up, you usually just want to shut it down. And so she was like, well, I didn't want to badmouth him in front of you, especially when you was younger. He was like, all right, well, I'm 17 now, okay? I'm not 7. I'm not a little boy, and I want to know everything. What was he like, the good and the bad? And so she basically tells him, your father was a half of a dreamer. He was a schemer. He created a lot of debts and screwed a lot of stuff up. And she basically was always left to clean up the mess. And he was like, well, you don't seem like that type to me. That's not the person that I know. She was telling him it was complicated. And she said, well, she was. And she changed basically after having him, okay? When he came into her life, when she got pregnant with Will and gave birth to him, that changed everything. He was her number one priority. So certain stuff she was not going to be going for no more, okay? And so she was like, he basically ran off because of that, and because he saw that he could not, use her anymore. I don't believe that story for one bit. I think maybe 25-50% of it is true. But I think we know by now, especially the way they making a big deal out of this, that it is more to it than that, okay? And so we finally have this birthday dinner. All of them are together, Hillary apologizes to Jazz because he comes up in there, and he was like, okay, I accept your apology or whatever the case may be. And, he asked her how everything is working out, and she was like, well, actually, I didn't say nothing to my parents yet, but I am staying in a hotel. I don't really know what the heck I'm gonna do. I actually owe Kylo $50,000. So I'm like, girl, like, now you are out of the house, you are staying in a hotel, and on top of that, now you are in a bigger debt than what you went in, owing this guy freaking money, all because you did not read this daggone contract. But I guess they got it, and I guess Uncle Phil will go ahead and pay it, and be happy that he ain't got to worry about these videos no more. But Jazz says, well, I would take a Jazz, you were right. And she was like, how about a Jazz, you were a pain in the butt? But she was like, you were right. And she was saying, like I said, she did quit the house. And he said, well, I knew it had to feel good to do that. And she was like, it really, really did. But now I'm like in this hotel and I'm stuck owing $50,000 and got to find a new place. She basically owes $50,000 for breaking the contract. And he was like, you got that type of bread? And she was like, I'm going to figure it out. And he says, I'm sure you will. You always do. I don't know about that, but we shall see. Okay, we're going to see what Hillary going to do. And so, Vi tells Carton that Will always wanted a brother, and he says that when they had, Ashley, he kind of wanted it to be a boy so he could have a brother too. And she was like, well, I guess the universe, put y'all together and made it happen, right? Now y'all have each other, right? I don't know if Carton would agree with that or not, but he was like just looked like he was thinking about what she was saying for a minute. Viv lets everybody know that dinner's going to be late because Phil is stuck in traffic. And Vi's like, okay, well then let's go ahead and open up these gifts. You could tell that Viv was about to be like, nah, we could wait a minute. Don't hurry and open the gifts now. But Vi was just like, yeah, it's your birthday. Go ahead, open up the gifts, all right? So you could still feel the tension in the air. When Will opens up his gift, the first gift is from his mom. And it's basically a picture of her holding him as a baby. And he's like, wow, who took this picture? I never saw this picture before. I'm sorry. Even before that, she does get a chance to meet Lisa. Lisa does come in. She says that she likes Lisa, that he needs to stick with a girl like that because that's exactly the kind of young woman that he needs. Because, she tells it like it is. And she was like, listen, he gets wild ideas sometimes and you got to be like, go sit your behind down. Okay. And so anyway, like I said, Will gets this picture from his mom and he's like, well, Viv, you took this picture? She was like, no, I didn't come till after. And so he's like, well, who took the picture? Obviously with the awkward silence, it had to be his dad. And so, after that, Viv is like, okay, well, come on, next gift. And the next gift is from her. Apparently it's some limited edition Jordans, okay, that are actually signed by Jordan. So of course they all going crazy about that. So now Vi gets into her damn feelings talking about, oh, you always gotta upstage me. You had to take all the shine away by getting this expensive gift. Like, girl, obviously it was going to be other different gifts that didn't have the same meaning as your gift when you brought him a picture. Like, come on, girl. But, of course, this had to finally happen. They had to get it out one way or the other. The tensions have been, high since the beginning. So this was just it. And this is how it came out. She says that she's always supported her. Her mother supported her. Phil supported her. She's never had to fight for anything. And she basically was like, girl, you acting like you had to climb some mountaintop. And you did, okay? Vi was basically going in on Viv, letting her know that she has never worked hard for anything. And then Viv goes back in on her and was like, look, you trying to basically always come at me. You always acting like you hate me. I'm supposed to be your sister. I don't understand what I did so bad to you. You know what I'm saying? She was like, I'm over it. I'm tired of it. You're not going to keep, trying to tear me down to build yourself up. And then Vi comes back at Viv and says that she erased her after she helped her to get everything that she needed. Okay, she helped her financially, she helped her emotionally, and all of that good stuff. She helped her when she wants to go to school, when she wanted to be in with art. And she says, now you want to do the same thing with my son and have him erase me too. And I'm like, really, girl? And she basically walks off. So of course this is like awkward because this is all in the middle of Will's birthday party. Okay. Carlton comes up and checks on his mom after she leaves, and he says, mom, that was a little bit much. Okay, y'all was hitting below the belt. And she says, he says, did you ever think that maybe underneath all that anger is hurt? Okay. And Vi says, Viv, she ain't hurting. Viv says, Vi, she ain't hurting. She's made of steel, okay? She put herself through school. She took care of Will by herself. She took care of Mom by herself. And as the words start coming out her mouth, she realizes by herself. Everything she's done by herself. She's always been the strong one. She's always been the one to take care of everything. That takes a toll on people. Maybe she's not as strong as you think she is. She is human, and maybe some of these things really did hurt her. And so Carlton, of all people, is the one that makes her realize this. Okay, he's growing up right before our eyes, y'all. And she says to him, how did you freaking grow up so much? How are you so mature right now? And he was like, maybe because of all the times that you told me that me and Will had to get it together. Okay. And at the same time, you have, Will go check on his mom, and she does apologize to him for ruining the party. And, he's talking to her for a minute saying, listen, this seems like this been an ongoing thing between the both of y'all, and both of y'all, are very, stubborn or whatever. And she was like, well, what, is this the part when you tell me that I gotta go and apologize to her? But Viv comes out to Vi before, she has to get up and go anyway, okay? And she asks Will if she could talk to her, talk to her sister for a minute. Will gets up and says, yeah. And she tells, Viv tells Vi sorry, and she tells her she's right. She said, I always seen you being the strong one. You always were the one taking care of everything. You're right. You did take care of me. You went to school. You took care of Will. So I never really thought that, you was feeling that way or that you needed anything, because you always pretty much held it all down. And Vi tells Viv she was also right. She was right when it came to Lou. She was like, that was her big mistake. That's where she fell short. But at the end of the day, she got the best thing that she could have ever possibly gotten out of it, that she would never regret, which is Will. And they both, agree and say that Will is absolutely, amazing. And she says now that she thought about it more, she actually will wait to tell Will about Lou later down the line. So obviously I was right when I said that she hadn't told, Will everything about Lou. Carlton has a heart-to-heart with Will after this as well. He says it's not about Lisa, okay? He says, he has had to be perfect, try to get perfect grades, try to have a certain stance in the school and all this different kind of stuff. Whereas when Will has came in, it's pretty much been easy for Will, okay? It seems like everything just falls into his lap. He doesn't really have to work for it. And at first, Will makes a joke, and of course that ticks Carlton off, but then Will tells him he gets it. He said, okay, well, going forward from this point on, what do we do? And is this going to be an issue and a problem with me still talking to Lisa? Because I don't want to be looking behind my back every minute. And Carlton tells him no. At the end of the day, yeah, he's hurt. He did care for Lisa, but him and Lisa been broke up. She's going to end up with somebody. And as long as he doesn't hurt her, Carlton says he has already hurt her. As long as Will doesn't hurt her, he's okay with it. And Will promises him that he won't. At the same time, we see Jeffrey walking in the back of them to go ahead into, Phil's office. And it looks like Jeffrey was about to put a resignation letter down, okay? He wasn't feeling the way Phil talked to him either. And so Will comes in and was like, yo, G, can I talk to you for a minute? He was like, I kind of got a big ass. And so Jeffrey's like, what's going on? What you need? Puts the letter back in his blazer or whatever have you. And Will says, yo, I really want you to look into my pops. I want you to see if you can find out where he is. Why did he leave? What made him leave? What made him stay away so long? Jeffrey says, look, finding out why he left and all of that, that could be kind of hard, okay? Everybody's story is different, but I will try my best to see what I can find out as far as where he's at now. And Will tells him, thank you. He says, don't thank me yet. Wait to see if I am able to find anything. And Will says, of course you will. You 007, okay, Jeffrey? So, baby, I don't know what exactly Lou did. Okay, and obviously Jeffrey did not do what Phil wanted him to do because he was about to put that resignation letter on the desk. So now if he goes and looks for Will's father for Will and find him, what does that mean for him and Phil? I don't know, y'all, but this was an alright episode. I mean, tell me all your opinions. Put it all in the comments. Did you like the episode? Didn't like the episode? Was you happy with what you seen? With the final answer of how all this friction between Von, Viv, what was happening, what was going on. What do you think is really the real deal with Will's father? Why is Phil so pressed? Put it all in the comments, okay? Like, share, subscribe. Till next time. Toodaloo.